A very busy weekend in the world of combat sports has come and gone. UFC 303, the roller coaster that was 303 has come and gone. International Fight Week 2024 has come and gone. And even up until late Saturday night, 303 was still throwing us some curveballs. And so we're going to go through all of it and more, talk about the results, talk about the big news, talk about the aftermath. So buckle up, my friends. On the program today, back into the show, we'll check in with the boys, obviously, throughout the show, get the not only the Parlay Pals results, but the International Fight Week draft results, which also came down to the wire. We'll get GC's results as well. 4:30, we will talk to the great Plinio Cruz. We've had Plinio on. He's the head coach for the likes of Alex Pereira, the reigning defending UFC light heavyweight champion. We've had him on with Alex, but never solo. And he's turned into one of the great characters and, more importantly, one of the best coaches in the world, just with what he's done with Alex over the last couple of years. And so I'm very excited to have him on the program solo. He'll be joining us at 4:30. At 4 o'clock, we will be joined by Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez was a massive story going into 303. He became an even bigger story coming out of 303. More on him in a moment. Diego Lopez will join us at 4 o'clock. Prior to that, we'll be joined by Machado Garry, who had the big win over MVP. Some liked it, some didn't like it, some appreciate it, some didn't appreciate it. He remains undefeated, 15-0, top contender at 170. We'll talk to him about the win, where he goes from here. He mentioned the also undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov on Saturday night. So we'll talk more about that with Ian Garry. Eric Nixick is also one of the best coaches in the world, the head man over at Extreme Couture. He had quite the weekend as well. More on him and his weekend and his crazy Saturday night as well. Prior to that, we'll be joined by Joe Pyfer. That will be at around 2:30. He got back on track with a very nice knockout win over Marc-André Barriault. He was coming off the loss to Jack Hermanson. Tough loss for him. That was supposed to be the fight that kind of, gave him that next little push in the middleweight division. It didn't quite work out that way. He comes back, big stage, looks fantastic, look absolutely yoked out there, knocks out Marc-André Barriault, and now he's all the way back. And then prior to that, our first guest will come at around 2 o'clock, the rising star Peyton Talbot, who lasted just 19 seconds in the cage. Another great win for him, a first-round win, a great celly, even though it looked a little bit dicey there for a second when he did the backflip thingy. He's a superstar. He's a stud. If you haven't gotten your tickets for his bandwagon, you might as well do so now because it's filling up very, very fast. So those are all the guests, 6 great guests. But let us talk about this weekend in the first hour, all the crazy things that happened, so many things, and we'll kind of work our way throughout it all during today's show. But we have to talk about 303. So 303, by now you know Alex Pereira is still the UFC light heavyweight champion. You know that he knocked out Jiří Procházka in the second round with a beautiful head kick, the kind of head kick that would make the likes of Mirko Cro Cop blush. Just absolutely amazing. And he almost had him in the first round. He dropped Jiří Procházka at the horn. I mean, if there were 5 to 10 more seconds, it probably would have been a first-round finish for Alex Pereira. It ends up being a second-round finish. That's massive news. What happened in the co-main event with Diego Lopez and Brian Ortega, and then, of course, Dan Ige was wild in its own right. And throughout the night, it was a pretty solid card. Obviously, a card that was supposed to feature Conor McGregor that had, at the time, a historic gate attached to it. It didn't end up falling off all that much. It went from a $20+ million gate to a $16 million gate, fourth biggest in UFC history. So again, UFC, even though they are throwing all kinds of obstacles and roadblocks and curveballs, they always seem to figure it out these days. And so kudos to them for that. And I've been trying to, I'm usually, I think, good at putting moments, at least in this particular sport, because I've been watching it for so long and obviously covering it for a while as well, putting moments into perspective and putting them into words. I don't know if I can do a good enough job of putting into words what Alex Pereira has been doing as of late, since he really came into the UFC. I feel confident in saying we have never seen anything quite like this. We have seen unbelievable stories. We have seen unique rises. We have seen people come out of the woodwork. We have seen people surprise us. We have seen superstars live up to their expectations. We've seen people exceed expectations. We've seen a lot of things, but something like this, I feel very confident in saying we have never seen before. And I'll try to explain a little bit. And we could go over like, hey, he still doesn't even have 10 fights in the octagon. He's on number 9. That was number 9 for him. Only 13 fights in his pro career. We could go through all that stuff, the 2 weights where he has become champion, the 300, the 303 short notice. But for me, what makes this so unique is he hasn't even been in the UFC for 3 years. September will be 3 years since his debut. And let me make sure I get that right. Excuse me, November, excuse me. Signed in September. I knew that didn't sound right when I said it. Signed in September, debuted in November at Madison Square Garden. So we're still like, we're 2.5 years in. And the amazing thing about Alex Pereira, and it's easy to forget this now, Alex Pereira for the longest time, especially in the MMA world, especially in this world, was the answer to a trivia question. Who's the guy that beat Adesanya? Who's the guy that knocked out Adesanya? What's that guy's name? And what is he doing? Oh, he's actually having some success in kickboxing. He's a 2-weight world champion in kickboxing. What's his name again? Pereira? Oh, he looks kind of tough. He's a great striker. Would he ever come over? Like, that's who he was. And we've seen this before. The longest time there was like, oh, Joe Duffy is the answer to the trivia question of the guy who beat Conor McGregor as he was coming up. Or, there was a woman who beat Chris Cyborg extremely early on in her career after then she wins like 20 in a row. And she was the answer to that trivia question. What was the name of the woman? And there would be the odd article about this person and what are they doing and where are they now? And Alex Pereira was that guy. Alex Pereira was the answer to the trivia question, who knocked out Israel Adesanya in kickboxing. And then all of a sudden, it's the pandemic. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the guy who knocked out Izzy is leaving kickboxing. There's some interest in having him on Contender Series. He's going to fight for LFA. His manager runs LFA, Ed Soares. There's nothing going on. It's like November 2020 to be exact. He's fighting a guy named Thomas Powell at the time. He's just 2-1. Like he's a guy looking for something to do. He's in his mid-30s. And I remember watching that fight and there was no one there because it was still early days of the pandemic. And he knocks out Thomas Powell and it's one of the most vicious knockouts that you'll ever see. And Thomas Powell is out for what felt like 10 minutes, maybe closer to 6, 7, 8. And you're like, holy shit, this guy can hit. This guy can strike. But of course, he'll come over to the UFC and maybe fight a couple times and just sort of be like a guy on the roster. And maybe just like Joe Duffy, he'll never actually even get to the rematch with Izzy because he's not that good or he has no ground game. And it's just going to go this way. And then, of course, he fights Andreas Michailidis at MSG, and it's an incredible knockout. And he's getting a ton of attention, a good amount of attention on that card. A full year later, by the way. And you're like, okay, this is someone to watch. But then the next fight was against Bruno Silva in March of 2022. And it wasn't exactly like a blow the doors off the house type of performance. It wasn't exactly something that you can really write home about. You're like, all right, maybe he is just the answer to that trivia question. And then, of course, everything that happened since. He knocks out Sean Strickland. And how good does that win continue to look? Considering how good Sean Strickland has looked since then, considering the puzzle that Sean Strickland has become, how difficult he is to solve, 4 great fighters like Izzy, 4 great fighters like DDP, 4 great fighters like Paulo Costa, he freaking starched him 2.5 minutes in the first round. And then it was the title fight against Izzy, and then we're off and running. But I want people to remember that this guy was just brought in because he was, Izzy's former foe. This was never supposed to happen. And not only has he gone on an incredible run, he's defying logic. The middleweight title was great. And maybe they expedited him. But he went in there and knocked out Izzy and proved that he was worthy of getting that shot maybe sooner than most. And what's so impressive about what Alex continues to do is he is not being carefully crafted, protected, nudged along by the UFC and given certain type of opponents. He is beating the guys who are in front of him. And yeah, has he not fought a lot of wrestlers? You can make that case. But the point is, he's beating the top guys. And it just so happens to be that the top guys right now have a great skill set for him. There was once a time where the top guys were at 205. John Jones, Ryan Bader, Phil Davis, Daniel Cormier. He's not fighting in that era. That's not his problem. He's fighting guys who are perfectly suited to be beaten by him, to be knocked out by him. They're not trying to protect him. In fact, he's doing everything to stack the deck against himself. He's taking a 300 fight on relatively short notice. He's taking a 303 fight on very short notice. And he continues to beat people up, to knock people out, to wow us. Even the Jan Blachowicz fight, we don't talk about that enough. That's a guy that frustrated Izzy on the ground, that took him down. He attempted to do the same and was successful at times against Pereira. In Utah, altitude, Pereira wins that fight. It's unbelievable what he's doing. And what's so impressive to me about it is he's unfazed. Doesn't seem like he's bothered by any of it. Doesn't seem like he's wowed by any of it. Goes in there, does his thing, emotionless, isn't buying his own hype, isn't feeling himself, isn't changing, isn't coming dressed, in super yeah, of course he's sprucing things up, but he's not, you could tell, none of this is getting to him. Broken toes or not, he's knocking people out with his feet. He's putting his toe back into place. Ain't no thing. Doesn't speak English. Can't connect with the people via his words, but is connecting with his demeanor, with his aura, with his fighting style, with his knockouts, with his aggression, his tenacity, with his willingness to step up anytime, anywhere, against anyone. I am blown away by this guy. I am blown away because no one predicted this. No one saw it coming. Absolutely no one saw it coming. He was brought to the UFC because he has a history with Izzy, and for the longest time, Izzy wouldn't even say his name, wouldn't acknowledge him, didn't think that he was worthy of fighting him. And now you can make a very strong case that he's more popular than Izzy. And I'm not trying to knock Izzy, but who says anything negative about Alex Pereira? Who says anything negative about this guy? You may be upset that your favorite fighter lost to him. You may be upset that, he's a difficult puzzle to figure out. But who actually hates him? And the same can be said for Jiří Procházka. And my heart breaks for Jiří Procházka because you know how intense this guy is. You know how much this means to him. He's locking himself in a dark room for 3 days. He lives the lifestyle, the martial arts. He's in there. He's like freaking, who knows what he's doing in the middle of the cage as Alex is coming out. The stare down was true cinema. The way the UFC shot it was beautiful. Them staring at each other, not moving for 5 minutes as Bruce Buffer is doing all his antics. Those guys are locked in like we've never seen before. And so I know he put out the video. I mean, look at this. This is Hogan Andre stuff. This is irresistible force meets the immovable object amidst the madness. Look at these photos. This is fucking incredible. These guys weren't moving. They were statues. Oh, we are blessed to be watching this. And you have Jiří, who physically, that he took damage, but I can't even imagine emotionally how he's handling this because you know how much this means to him. You know how intense he is. We saw how intense he was after the loss in November. And so guys like that, they don't take these setbacks lightly. He'll be okay. He'll be back. And I know in his video, he said, if I don't evolve, I should stop fighting. He will be back. He lives this lifestyle, to its core. He is such a pure fighter and a pure person. And I know that there were some jokes and some quips about like the voodoo stuff and all that, but like that's how intense he is. That's how he feels about his opponent. That's how he views all of this. This isn't a joke for him. This isn't a game. And so I feel for him. But he just, there have been a lot of great athletes that just run into better athletes. My favorite athlete of all time, Patrick Ewing, just so happened to play in the Michael Jordan era, and he never got over the hump. And luckily for Jiří, he did get over the hump one time, but right now it just seems like he's Joe B and DJ. He's Uriah and Jose Aldo. He's, we could go on with all the different examples. These guys who, Alex Gustafsson, John Jones, etc. And here we are, July 1st, and I think that Alex Pereira has wrapped up the Male Fighter of the Year award. Ilya Topuria could do something later in the year, and maybe he'll give him a strong case, but holy shit, we might get one more Alex Pereira fight. And Lord help us if it's at heavyweight. I don't think it would be at heavyweight, but I would sign up right now. You know, the Ankalaev fight is out there, and I know Jamal Hill put something out. The great source that he is, he put something out that Ankalaev can't get into the country. I don't know if that's true or not. Ankalaev is refuting it, so I'm going to take Ankalaev's word for it. This is increasingly becoming a bit of a problem with some fighters, but if Ankalaev is saying it, then God bless. He deserves it. He should fight for the belt next. He's the number one contender. I would sign up right now for a Pavlovich-Pereira fight, a Volkov Pereira fight, meaning a Pereira non-title heavyweight fight just to dip his toe in the water, akin to Anderson Silva, Forrest Griffin, Anderson Silva, James Irvin, like one of those fun fights. And if he did one of those, you know, this would be wrapped up. And of course, for the second pay-per-view in a row, we get Dana White going on a crazy rant about the pound for pound debate. And to me, just exemplifying that he doesn't know the difference between greatest fighter of all time and best pound for pound fighter right now. He continues to say that John Jones, he had an opportunity to put Islam Makhachev over on June 1st, didn't do that. Had an opportunity to put Alex Pereira over on Saturday, didn't do that. Is getting all caught up in the John Jones thing. So perhaps there's a great payoff when he comes back in November, one last or maybe two more paydays, you know, for everyone involved. Massive gate, massive buy rates, all that stuff. But given, if we're going to go with his criteria, how do you not put Alex Pereira as the number one pound for pound fighter in the world? And I'll tell you right now, I sat here on June 3rd after Islam Makhachev beat Dustin Poirier, and I said he is definitively the best pound for pound fighter in the world. I sit here on July 1st and tell you, for our Ringer MMA rankings, I put Alex Pereira as number one. If we're going to go down to winning in multiple weight classes, how do you not put Pereira there? The man won at 85. He won at 205, and he continues to win and defend that title. And if you want to talk about the knockout loss, go look at Islam's record. He got knocked out a few years back as well. It's all very debatable. Who gives a crap? But I'm just saying, this dude who's less than 10 fights in has a very strong case for number one pound for pound fighter in the world. And I think right now he is. And when Leon fights in 26 days, he may be number one. And when Islam fights again, he may be number one. The point is, we are in a blessed time. It's actually akin to the boxing pound for pound rankings. Like when Usyk fights, he goes to number one, and then Inoue goes up and fights, and he's number one, and then Crawford fights, and then he's number one. This is incredible. These are incredible times. The footage of Pereira in there dancing with Plinio and Big Nog before he's in the locker room before the fight that he took on 2.5 weeks' notice. Look at this guy. This is before the fight. They're line dancing in there. I don't know what they're doing. Big Nog's in there. This guy is unfazed. He is unbothered. We've never seen anything like this. We have never seen anything like that. This guy was in Australia. He had 2 broken toes. Yeah, sure, I'll fly back and fight this fight. And just looked like he was taking, like he could fight. Apparently, according to Twitter, he's back at the gym today, and we'll talk to Plinio about this. Blown away. Blown away by Alex Pereira, blown away by what he's doing. Appreciate this. This is, new fans, just to let you know, this isn't normal. This isn't common. And the old heads will tell you, this isn't normal. This isn't. We have seen Anderson Silva knock out Chris Lieben, and then he fights Rich Franklin, and he goes on an incredible run. And we've seen people like Leon Edwards have a slow build, and look what he does. Or an Usman, slow build. Or a GSP had the hype coming in, and look what he does. Khabib a little bit, and look what he does. This dude is defying logic. He's defying freaking logic, and a fight against John Jones is probably the biggest that the UFC could put on right now that doesn't involve Conor McGregor. He plays by a different set of rules, a matchup. But golly, if that doesn't happen, and I can't see why Jones would take it if he's not taking the Aspinall fight, sign me up for Aspinall versus Pereira at some point down the line when it makes sense. Or if Izzy beats DDP. Let's bring in the guys here. I need to talk to other people about it because I'm still, 2 days removed. I'm still in awe. Mr. New York Rick was working in PR. Oh, that's a great background. Shout out to you. That's nice. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Don't
I mean,
do
I didn't
that.
do much with it, but it looks all right.
He's got the moose. He's got the
Oh
freaking
yeah,
moose.
we're ready to go for Canada Day.
Thanks,
We're
bro.
feeling good.
Thank you. I
July
appreciate
1st.
it. Yeah, that's big. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually ordered a real flag. It just didn't get here in time. I got a pin, added it to the Shama shirt.
Yeah.
Got the Canadian flag
No,
pin.
that
I mean,
works.
we're repping.
That
We're
works.
repping.
I mean,
Won't keep it all day, but
it's covering the microphone and stuff. It gets a
I
little.
mean, we can go back to that.
No, we like it. It's way better. No, come on. No.
There it is. Back to it.
Rick, when you were doing PR for Glory, was Pereira fighting there?
Yes.
Come on. Did you believe this? Like, did you think that, like, did this cross your mind? Even when he came over, did you think this guy could be this?
When he came over, yes. At the time at Glory, no. Because when I was there, when I was at Glory, his kickboxing career was not like super successful, right? He was kind of certainly he had power and he had displayed it in several of his fights, but he was more of a middling kind of kickboxer at that time. By the time he left Glory and I had been gone by then, he was a 2-weight world champion, has a win over a guy in Artem Vakitov, who I think is like amazing and elite and seems to be making a run toward MMA to kind of chase him down in the way that he chased Izzy down. Though by the end, he was an incredible kickboxer. But at the time I was there, he was not like an elite guy. He was not one of the guys that we were thinking was even like future Glory champion, let alone 2-division Glory champion, let alone transition to UFC, become champion, let alone become 2-division UFC champion. So no, did not see it coming. Incredible story, super interesting, fascinating dude, but did not see it coming.
What do you make of all of this? Put it into words. You see what we're witnessing here. I mean, this is
how can I put it into words? I mean, you just put it so eloquently before this. I don't really have anything else to add to it. It's unbelievable. It's just like you can't doubt the guy. He's doing it with style. He's doing it with charisma. He's doing it with finishes. Like you said, he isn't even like he says a few words in English. Most of it is all in Portuguese. Yet he's still connecting with this audience in a way that it just feels unmatched of the current roster right now. It's just mind blowing what this guy is doing. I mean, it just feels like no matter what he does next, he's going to do it right. It feels like he's making no wrong moves right now. It's crazy.
And it's not just that he's taking fights. It's like there's always something. It's short notice 300. He saves the day. It's short notice 303. It's not just like, okay, he's booked
Madison
and
Square
like we can't.
Garden.
Yeah. Oh, 2 Madison Square Garden, no big deal. Move up a weight class, no big deal. Let me go to Utah and fight Jan Blachowicz, NBD. Like, and that's why I'm like, yeah, give him that. I see a quote here from Sergey Pavlovich that he's interested in fighting him. Like, let's just see. He deserves that. At this point, he deserves to write his own ticket and do whatever the hell he wants. And that's not me advocating for him not to fight Magomed Ankalaev. That should be the next fight at 205. It's not a terribly sexy fight. I don't think a lot of people really care about Magomed Ankalaev, but he has earned it with what he's done in the cage. And also, I mean, like, just, he had the draw. He deserves another crack at things. But holy shit, man. I'm really just blown away by the guy. I know we hate the pound for pound thing, but there is a case, right? There's a strong case.
There's definitely a case that you can make. With everything that he's doing, you'd be crazy to not to. I mean, he's in my opinion, he's a lock to be in the top 3 right now. No doubt about it.
It's Islam, Alex, and Leon, in my opinion.
The case is very simple, right? He could see there's a world where if you put Alex Pereira at heavyweight, light heavyweight, or middleweight, you can conceivably say he would be champion of those divisions. That's it. That's all you need to say. If you're talking about pound for pound, there's a very easy case to be made that he's the best light heavyweight, could be the best middleweight if he was able to get down there. And there's many people out there who believe he could be the best heavyweight, who believe he could at least be heavyweight champion. That's a very strong case if you're talking about a pound for pound discussion. I think it's a very simple case to make. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I understand like how simple that kind of evidence would be to present.
Who wins? Him versus John Jones? Who wins?
John Jones.
Oh man, yeah, probably John Jones.
I don't know, man.
The first double leg
It's not like I
is
don't
the
want
end
to
of the
see
fight.
it, though. It's not like I don't want to see it.
Him versus Aspinall. Who?
Tom Aspinall. I'm
Probably Tom Aspinall as well.
I'm
But like,
much
it doesn't
more
mean I don't want to
interested-
see it.
Those are not the matchups for Alex Pereira. Cyril
What
Gane
if he
versus
stuffs a
Alex
couple
Pereira.
takedowns?
Cyril
Oh,
Gane
okay.
versus
Now we're
Alex
talking.
Pereira. That's the fight.
Now we're talking.
Make it.
That-
They faced off in
I'm down.
December. They look the same size. Do it. That's the fight.
I'll take Volkov. I'll take one of
No,
those.
hell no. Volkov.
Yeah.
That's
no,
like
no,
the
no.
last one you want.
Why?
He's
don't
going to
want
stand
Volkov
on the
either.
end of the jab, and Alex
fuck
is
it.
never going to get
He's
into
giant.
the
He's
fight.
rangy.
Dude,
he's not
this-
like
hell no.
he's not like that.
This is the giant
popular of a
slayer.
fighter.
This
No,
is the
that's
giant
a real.
slayer.
That's a real heavyweight. That's not
Not
a
popular fighter. Volkov's out there quaffing people at Power Slap now. He's a freaking legend.
Like,
He's out there
I'm
with
not
his.
saying he's not a legend, but like Alexander Volkov, like
No, bad-
I feel like
bad
Cyril
styles.
Gane's got more star power. And I bet Alex Pereira would be like, yeah, I'll go to France and fight Cyril Gane. No problem.
God, the France show
When's the
headlined
flight?
by Gane
I'll
versus.
hop on right now.
I'm just.
Can,
so-
can we also talk about something else that's just so crazy about him is that like it feels like every time he fights these days, we get a viral moment from it. Like
Oh, yeah.
this being the head kick, you get all these unbelievable pictures, the stare down, the fact that like he's got like a catchphrase in Shama, everyone can
Yes.
just throw it out there. He's almost got a logo with like the Easter Island head guy.
It's-
Like it's just like now he's got the custom shorts, he's got the war paint before when he does the weigh-ins. Like everything about him is just like it's just so good. It's crazy.
The word that keeps coming up when I think about Alex Pereira is effortless. When you think about everybody else, it
Yes.
feels like there's so much care, there's so much effort put into how they're portrayed, how they've managed their careers. There's no effort with Alex Pereira from the knockout perspective, right? He's backpedaling on the back foot and throwing a hook to knock Yuri down just because he has stupid power and Yuri's running straight into his fist. From a fight style, he's effortless, but also just from the way his vibes are, the way he's managed himself, everything feels effortless. It does not feel like he's trying, and yet he has achieved this level of success that nobody outside of Conor McGregor has been able to do in such a short amount of time. It's impressive, but it's also just like cool. It's really cool.
That's both points are fantastic because to your point, Eric, it feels like in this era everyone's trying too hard, right?
Trying so hard.
Everyone, from their dress, from their words, from their behavior, whatever, from their social media, he does the complete opposite. And then to your point, GC, like in an era where the UFC really does try to make the UFC the biggest draw and everyone kind of looks the same with the uniform and the product is the same no matter if they're in Riyadh or Vegas or Vancouver, this freaking guy in an effortless way gives you so much to chew on as a fan, right? To get behind. Like that's what we all love as fans. You want to get behind people. Like I'll give you an example. Like Jalen Brunson has this little thing that he does so kids get behind that. So MMA fans get behind the head thing. They get behind the Shama. They get behind the bow and arrow. They get behind the face. They get behind the shorts. They get behind the fighting. They get behind the stare down. He gives you so many little gimmicks, if you will. They're not gimmicks by any stretch, but so many things that you could say like, that's my guy. I'm going to rep him. How many fighters have that?
These really cool things of personality. And I kept saying it on a couple other programs that like, this is the perfect fight that you hit up your friends and you invite them over to watch and you know that it's going to deliver. And like, just imagine if someone really wasn't into the UFC and you're just like, oh yeah, here's his weigh-ins where he's got the full paint on and you get the whole stare down. And then when the fight rolls around, you get this unbelievable walkout with he's got the signature song at this point. He does the bow and arrow.
Yes.
Then you get that 4-minute stare down. And then you get the product itself, the fighting, and he delivers a massive dropping of Yuri Prochazka at the end of round 1 and then comes out in the first 5 seconds of round 2 and a head kick that puts him into the shadow realm, just completely knocks him out. How could you not walk away from that and be like, man, I'd like to see that guy fight again. I'm kind of a fan of this guy. Like, it's unbelievable.
Can I just say, while I maintain that Alex Pereira is effortless, a lot of credit is owed to his team around him because things like randomly changing a tire on the side of the road can feel forced, right? But because it's Alex, I think that his like calm and being effortless kind of shines through. But clearly somebody had thought about that, right? Somebody on his team said, hey, this would be a moment. Let's get this out there. The same as the branding with the Easter Island head, the same as the Shama. Everything feels effortless because of him being at the center of it. But the team around him has done an incredible job from a marketing perspective. Like to the point that it probably needs to be studied in how they took somebody who's not a native English speaker, but has a great look and a really intense vibe and a great fighting style and turned him into a megastar without having to compromise anything, without him having to change anything that he's doing, which I think is like extremely commendable, but also something worth looking at. If you're trying to look at a road, many people try to copy like the Conor McGregor style. He's taken a style that's completely different, and the team around him has built around that and got him to a level of superstardom that I think is incredible.
100%. And it's also worth noting he doesn't have like some, marketing guru behind him, some PR person.
I
It's
would
just
argue what they are marketing gurus.
no. But what
I'm
I'm saying is, you may think like, oh, let me go hire
Yeah,
that person.
exactly.
Like, no, it's
Yeah.
just his crew. It's just his crew. It's the people,
They're-
people who have been around for a very long time and who get it. So his next fight, what do you think it's going to be? Do you think it's going to be Magomed?
I think it's Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. Sure. Who's clamoring for that?
No, but it's just it's either that or some random heavyweight fight. And I'm not saying they won't think about that, but it's not going to, I don't know. Maybe it could be freaking Aspinall. I don't know.
If you're Alex, what fight do you want?
He seems very indifferent to all of it. He's just
He does.
Sure.
I just feel like his future is at heavyweight. And so why delay? What like a win over Magomed looks good. It helps the resume. But if the future is heavyweight, win or lose, right? Like, let's say he goes into that fight and loses, he's going to go to heavyweight. Let's say he goes into that fight and wins. Who's left for him at light heavyweight? There's not really names. The only name I could think of is if Israel wins and all of a sudden Israel says, I want to fight you at light heavyweight. That's potentially interesting to me. But there's not much left to be done at light heavyweight, especially if you're on the speed run that he's on. Just go to heavyweight.
That's a big ass fight.
Izzy versus
champion versus champion.
Yeah.
Like
my gosh.
The last chapter.
That's one of the biggest fights. That the
last
UFC can
chapter,
make
shit.
right
I want 5 more. Forget.
No, but I know.
chapter.
At some point, by the way, the guy's almost 37. He's 37 in a week.
That's a really important part of this whole story, right? He's wasted no time. He knows that his earning potential is right now. When somebody falls off and he's got busted toes, pay him the money and he will step in because he doesn't have many years left in this game. He's got to capitalize on this. He's not the guy like Conor or like others who grew up dreaming of being in the UFC. I'm going to be this big UFC superstar, and this was my dream since I was young, and now I'm here, and I'm only 25, and I've got all Ian Gary, right? He's not Ian Gary. He's somebody who went into this because Israel Adesanya taunted him, and he thought, I could beat that guy, so let me try. And so he doesn't have the years left in the game like some of those guys who did that, and so he's capitalizing on those years that he does have in the game, and man, to the degree that as I said, I can't think of anybody outside of Conor who's been able to squeeze it in that short amount of time.
Probably not since Randy Couture have we seen someone come in at this later stage of his life and have this kind of success. And so let's see. I mean, he did have 40 kickboxing fights, on his resume before all of this started, and he seems to be doing just fine. He doesn't get hit all that much. I know he got knocked out by Izzy, but in these fights, like he's not getting hit a terrible amount. All right, so that's the main event. We're going to talk to Plinio Cruz, and we'll talk more about him throughout the show. Let's just talk about the co-main event. This co-main event for UFC 303 took on so many twists and turns. Again, originally it was supposed to be Khalil Roundtree against Jamal Hill, and then it became Jamal Hill after Khalil Roundtree tested positive versus Carlos Ulberg. And then it became Carlos Ulberg versus Anthony Smith. But then that no longer became the co-main event. That got bumped down. The new co-main event when the Conor fight fell through and when Jamal Hill withdrew was Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. And then on Friday morning, we find out Brian Ortega is not going to make 145 as the story goes. And we'll talk to Diego about this. He gets a call, Diego does, at around 4 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning, so about 5 hours before the weigh-ins. And he's told that Brian Ortega is weighing 151 and he's not going to be able to make 146. And so the fight can either be at 155 or it's off. And so he agrees to 155. And he makes that weight, obviously, and as does Ortega, although Ortega did look off, but we all kind of attributed to, missing weight, the disappointment, et cetera, et cetera. Then all of a sudden, it's Saturday night. The card has already started. And by the way, Ortega and Lopez in particular, they weren't scheduled to be on this card 3 weeks ago. They just jumped in at the last minute. That kind of gets lost in all of this. Like, this was already a super short notice fight. Anyway, Saturday night, fights are going on. And it's really around the time of the Cub Swanson Andre Fili fight. See a tweet from Danny Ige. Is he just messing around? People do this all the time. See a tweet from Eric Nixick. See a tweet from Ali Abdelaziz. See a tweet from Diego Lopez. And you're like, what is going on? So I start digging. I start asking around. And I'm being told that Ortega's out. Ortega's sick. And they're trying to put together Diego Lopez against Dan Ige at 165 pounds. Now 10 pounds higher tonight, co-main event. They're trying to put this together now. The hell? Even up until the point that they announced it on the broadcast, I thought I was being pranked. I'm not kidding. I thought this was the UFC finally getting me. I thought this was the UFC finally like getting all their soldiers together and punking me, because this has never happened before. And I keep saying it, and people keep saying, yeah, but what about Joe Soto and TJ Dillashaw? Nope, Joe Soto was on the card at UFC 177. He was fighting someone else, and then Barao had to pull out, and then he got bumped up. What about the Taffer brothers? Nope, weighed in the day before. What about a backup fight? Weighed in. This has never happened in the history of the UFC where someone who is not on the card, who wasn't fighting someone else, who wasn't a backup fighter, on the night of the fight gets called to come, weigh in at the arena, medical's done, and he fights that night. It's never happened before. And even as far as like Major League MMA is concerned, supremely rare. You could pick out some example from Japan back in the day or whatever, but like North American Major League MMA, this does not happen. And so a few things were working in their favor. Obviously, Ige lives in town. He's DTF, down to fight. And so is Diego Lopez. Lopez obviously deserves a ton of credit here because he could have just said, to hell with this. I go from 145 to 155 to now a whole new opponent at 165. Screw that. Give me my money and let me go home. He takes the fight and he wins the fight. Dan Ige was on his couch. He was getting a massage or something. And this is like 4:00. By 4:30 local time, it's all, it's all like the wheels are turning. It's all going into motion. By 6:30, he's getting to the arena. He's weighing in. And, by, I don't know, 9:30, he's fighting. It's unbelievable. And there's a part of me that still doesn't, as incredible as this is, as amazing as it was, as fun as it was, the amount of respect that I have for both men, and as we should all have, is astronomical. I still don't quite understand how it happened. And based on my conversations with people over the last day or so, because I kept asking, like, don't you have to weigh in the day before? Don't you have to already be on the card? And what I was told was like, no, you don't. We just kind of assumed that that's like the way it was. But the same way they moved, the afternoon weigh-ins to the morning without having to do like a whole big vote and change the rules of the sport, they could technically do this. No one's just ever done it before. And I'm sure because it was the UFC and because Ige and Lopez are, closely ranked, and because, Ige fought in February and he's supposed to fight in Nevada in July, like a lot of the stuff had already been done. Still kind of wild that a guy who was at home just chilling 5 hours later was fighting. Never happened before. Backup fighters have fought last minute. Cards have been moved around. Obviously, one of the most famous ones, Ken Shamrock and Kimbo Slice back in 2008, but nothing like this. And there's also a part of me that wonders, like, why did the UFC move mountains to make this happen? I remember UFC 175, Stefan Struve was supposed to fight Matt Mitrione. It was International Fight Week, and Stefan Struve, got lightheaded, and the word was that he fainted backstage, and then all of a sudden Mitrione was off the card. They didn't call someone up locally and say like, hey, do you want to rush to the arena and fight? But F it. I guess the card took a lot of hits. Maybe someone made a good pitch. We saw the text message from, Ige to Hunter Campbell, and they got it done. Unbelievably so. I couldn't believe it as it was all unfolding. It was really surreal because I really thought that they were punking us. Again, I really thought that it was an unbelievable thing. By the way, regarding Brian Ortega, I asked for an update from his manager, and he told me that he caught a horrible fever over the last few days from his body being run down from cutting on 15 days notice and 30 plus pounds. He couldn't recover or keep anything down. And so that's what happened to Brian Ortega. And remember, I said it last week, that particular fight gave me pause because he was saying that he was moving up to 155, that he was hoping to fight on the Sphere card at 155 pounds. And so when you get a call on short notice as you're trying to bulk up, as your mind is set on this new number, to then, take a bit of a detour and cut extra weight and stick at, featherweight, it could screw you up. And it ended up screwing him up. And as a result of that, he got sick, and it was an unfortunate circumstance. But legendary stuff from Diego Lopez, who wins, whose story and legend and legacy continues to grow. Another guy who kind of came out of nowhere and is making the most of his opportunities. And now, it's a great story for Dan Ige. A lot of people, lesser fighters, have made, great, reputations and connections with the audience by doing things like this. Fans love this. They fall in love with this. And the guy won the third round. He lost 29-28. It's not like he gassed out. He doesn't get knocked down. He doesn't get knocked out. Amazing. Really amazing. Another big story from Saturday, Ian Garry gets the win over MVP. He was that freaking close to submitting Michael Venom Page. I think the broadcast team is great. I have nothing bad to say about Joe Rogan. I think he's an unbelievable asset. He's an unbelievable ambassador. The UFC are lucky to have him. They should pay him whatever he wants. He's incredible at his job. His business is incredible. I just wish he would stop with the "it's over, it's over, it's over." Like, why do you have to keep saying that so definitively when the choke is getting sunk in? And he said it on Saturday, and it wasn't over. And MVP got out. And kudos to MVP, who isn't known to have the best ground game, for getting out. And I know that Ian is kicking himself for not finishing him, but I thought that was a fine fight. A lot of people were complaining about it. That's how you have to beat MVP. And there was a chance that the fight was, not going to be the best one ever, but it was a great test for him. It was by far the biggest fight, the biggest stage, and I think the toughest opponent that he has faced thus far. Getting people saying he's a fraud, he's beating cans, like, you're exposing yourself. Neil Magny is not a can. Jeff Neal is not a can. D-Rod is not a can. MVP is not a can. The guy is still 26. He's 15-0. He is talking the talk and he is walking the walk. And style points are great. I'm not going to say he's as popular as Pereira or Yuri or Alex or Izzy, but he's winning the fights in a smart way with a good game plan. Dana White said afterwards that he thought it was a draw. I don't know. I don't know if Dana was trying to demote him on Saturday or what, but I don't know how that could be a draw. I guess if you gave him a 10-8 and then you gave MVP the next two, but I don't see how that was possible. And then he also said that Colby Covington didn't turn down the fight when everyone else seems to say that he did. I don't know. It was weird. There was an opportunity, I think, to put him over, and it just didn't happen. I was getting so many texts about him on Saturday, people hating that fight. And I was like, I thought it was an interesting war of attrition. Two great strikers. Something's got to give. We hypothesized that Ian would be the one, given who he trains with these days at Shooto Box, Demian Maia and Diego Lima and Charles Oliveira. He would be the one to try to keep the fight close, get the fight to the ground, frustrate MVP, and he did just that. What did you guys think of the fight? Did you hate it?
No, I thought it was a fine fight where Ian Machado Garry did what he needed to do and did just enough. I would push back against you saying he's talking the talk and walking the walk to a certain extent, because he's definitely talking the talk, but the walk is not commensurate with the talk. There's a big gap between what he's talking about and what he's
how so
in the cage.
Because he's not getting finishes?
Yeah, when you say you're the best, this, that, the other, show us. Like, the performances don't match the words. And that's fine. I have no issue with that. Undefeated, continuing to rise, clearly somebody the UFC wants and puts in good positions. But there's a gap between how he talks about himself and the performances that we're seeing. When you are putting yourself in after the fight and post-fight comments, he put himself in league with John Jones, GSP, Anderson Silva. When you are wanting to be in league with those guys, you have to perform the way those guys did when they were in their primes. That's where you have to be if you're going to put yourself in league with those guys. And he continues to bloviate and talk about, where he is as a fighter, and his IQ is this and his leg kicks are this and that. And we don't see it. So
I thought the IQ was on display on Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually thought it was a great game plan.
Yeah.
I mean, he loses that fight if he doesn't get that back take at the end of the third round.
Right.
He was also that close to getting that choke in the first round.
I know.
Like,
so if he gets that choke, is the narrative completely different? Is he talking the talk?
Yes.
Totally different.
100% different. He gets up, he
Very
shushes the
different.
crowd. What did I say? Did it in one round.
Literally an
choked
inch
him right
away.
out.
Inch
Oh,
away.
man, I thought, you say it about Rogan. I thought it was over too. I thought that thing was so locked in that it was, the fight was about to, I thought MVP was about to tap.
let me be clear. I'm not trying to say that Ian Garry isn't a good fighter, potentially even a great fighter, or potentially somebody who could be a future champion. But the way he puts himself out there, the way he presents himself and represents himself is not commensurate with what we're seeing. Somebody who is as good as he says he is would have finished MVP.
You know how we find out?
How?
Title contender matchup. Someone's O's got to go. Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov.
I'm all
They were
in.
talking about it on Saturday
love
night. Shavkat started tweeting about it. You want to find out how good Ian Garry is? You put it up against the guy who's 18-0, 18 finishes, and just seems to be unstoppable. Ian Garry gets past that, then I feel like you silence all the doubters and you give him a title shot right then and there.
I love that. And again, it doesn't fit the narrative of people saying like, "Yo, he wants easy fights." He's like, if you're that guy, if you just want everything handed to you, you're not calling out Shavkat. That's the last guy you're calling out.
That's not the proper knock on Ian Garry. The Ian Garry is game and does want to fight. That is not the knock on Ian Garry. My criticism of Ian Garry is the performances don't match what he's saying. That's it.
He's also fighting guys like MVP has 3 losses down his record. He's only been finished once. It's very hard to knock him down or finish him. Neil Magny, Jeff Neal, these aren't guys. And then when he fought a guy who like stands and bangs, he knocked him out. D-Rod. You know, I was saying this about
UFC against.
I was saying this about Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is fighting guys that, you know, are tailor made for him to knock out, which is not something that they crafted. It's the luck of the draw. On his, like, he ain't knocking out Shavkat. I'll tell you that much. That's another 15-minute or 25-minute decision win, if you ask me. If he does win that fight, which isn't a given. And if he wins that fight via decision, I bet you people will be like, you know.
Yeah, dude, if he wins that fight, any way he does if he wins that fight,
man,
the talk is done. It's time for a
if
title
he wins
shot.
that fight, it will change the entire narrative.
Another thing that I do appreciate about Ian Garry is how active he is. I mean, he's had 8 fights. He debuted on that same card as Alex Pereira at MSG in 2021. So he's 8-0. We're getting the mumblings now of title talks, but let's just find out. Shavkat, Ian Garry. That'll answer all the questions we need.
I would love to see it. And I love the call out too.
I
He should
still
move
kind of
on
want to
from
see Colby. I still kind of want to see it, but I'd rather see Shavkat at this point.
If I'm
I'd rather
Ian,
see
just move on from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
no
move
point.
on.
No point waiting around. Let's get Shavkat booked up. Someone's always got to go. Winner gets the title shot.
It also doesn't propel him forward as much as it would have previously, right? This would have been a good time to fight Colby. It made sense. If he beat Shavkat, it propels him further. I think there would be a lot of potential excuses, right? Like if he beats Colby, there's going to be a lot of like, well, Colby was washed. We saw how he looked against Leon. He's not good.
Yeah, he beats
won't
Colby
help
by decision.
him.
All the talk continues. All that same talk that's happening now continues.
Shavkat pushes him further at this point. I think he can move on from it. I still wouldn't mind it though. I don't mind it if we get that fight.
There were some rumblings of
Shavkat
Shavkat versus Usman, and I don't hate that fight for Shavkat. I don't hate that fight for Ian as well, given who Usman is and was.
Yeah.
But I would much rather see Shavkat versus Ian. That's a number 1 contender fight right there. 2
100%.
fresh faces, undefeated, O versus O, 17-0, I think against 15-0. Golly. How many people are calling out Shavkat? JDM?
Not many. Yeah, not many.
And he's in that mix too.
JDM's in that mix
17
for sure.
17-0, 17 finishes too. It's just crazy. This guy's an absolute monster.
Tough loss for Anthony Smith against Roman Dolidze. Dolidze is a beast in his own right. He called out Khamzat at 185. Wouldn't hate seeing that. Macy Chiasson gets the win over Mayra Bueno Silva. I don't understand how anyone could say that was a bad call. That 1,000% was the right call. She had a freaking gash, and it was spraying out. When she jumped over to talk to Dana and company, you could tell they were like, okay, please, can you just go over there for the love of
They're
God?
backing up.
Yes, they're like,
Dana's
yes,
like taking his
thank
papers.
you so much. What an elbow by Macy Chiasson, and a great call by everyone involved. Really amazing stuff. Like I said, Joe Pyfer had an amazing comeback win as far as his career is concerned. That was all him. Payne Talbot, who we're going to talk to in 10 minutes, with another great win as well. Shinsuke Nakamura walking out Rei Tsuruya. That was great, although we didn't get the walkout. How did you not show the walkout? How do you not show the walkout? You got Shinsuke in there. TKO. How do you not show the walkout? Golly. We had a nice moment with Michelle Watterson Fortunately, she called it a career, but it was probably the right time. They gave her a great video package. Usually reserved for like former champs, legends, but they love Michelle Waterson, so God bless. It was great. A pioneer of women's MMA, someone who really wasn't fighting in like she was a 105 champion in Invicta, and now she's fighting at 125. Came into the UFC at 115. So what a career she's had. And Andrei Arlovsky ends up fighting in his last UFC fight, but I'm told he's going to keep on going. And this morning on social media, he said he's going to keep on going. I feel like he's ripe for a cameo in BKFC. We'll see about that, but he did not get a video package or anything of that nature. But I was told that he didn't want a whole hullabaloo. And you have to tell the UFC this beforehand and the relationship, and not like he doesn't have that kind of relationship. He has been around for so long and would certainly deserve something like that. But I would say, we'll always have House Taste My Pee-Pee. What a moment that was. Nice stuff with Michelle Waterson. I like that. I like when they do that sort of thing. They did it with Robbie Lawler last year. That was great. And it's nice, especially when they have time on the broadcast to, to give these legends their due. Also on the card, we had Vinicius Oliveira beat Ricky Simone. Like I said, this is a tough last name. Tsuruya, I believe it is. Beat Carlos Hernandez. Martin Boudet beat Andrei Arlovsky. Jillian Robertson got the win over Michelle Waterson Gomez, and I thought that she was going to submit her maybe in the first round. And John Silva was rocking the Dudley Boys glasses again. He missed weight, but ended up knocking out Charles Jourdain with a beautiful uppercut in the first round. Andre Feely and Cub Swanson got the Fight of the Night award, and Feely got the nod there via split decision. So those were the results. In the end, I thought it was a fine night, guys. What did you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was solid, top to bottom. Man, I got to tell you.
It was an all right card.
I love Loke Dog. He might be my favorite fighter right now. He's the man. I love Loke Dog. I just love that dude.
Why?
The style, the finishes, the bravado, the swagger. He's in the post-fight press conference calling out Umar, saying he's running from him because he doesn't want this. He doesn't want this smoke. I just love that dude. Like moment for moment, he's one of the most exciting dudes right now, even on the mic. And the English is good, man. Like I'm all in on Loke Dog.
Yeah, the style's sick. I mean, he is just go, and like it's nonstop. I thought the check kick he was about to get taken out.
Totally. I thought he was dead.
Crazy.
I thought he was dead after that. But yeah, shout out to Loke Dog.
Man, it was a crazy weekend. Like on Friday, we had some people over at our house, and I didn't look at my phone for like 4 hours. I come back, and it felt like 4,000 things happened. PFL was going on. Crazy cut in the main event. Brendan Loughnane. That was absurd. We have a picture of the cut courtesy of Sean O'Connell. I mean, look at that.
That is a crater.
That is
a
Justin
valley
Gonzalez
in his forehead.
Yes. Good stoppage, you think?
That is a river.
No, they gotta let it go. Gotta let it go.
How long does that take to heal? How bad is the scar from that?
Man, you need a good plastic surgeon.
Well, that's why they have the plastic surgeons on site, thankfully. Like, you get that done right away, but man.
I feel like I'm looking at his brain, man. That's how deep that cut is.
I think Loughnane said in the post-fight that he saw pink. He saw the pink of his brain.
Shut up, dude.
Said something like that, yeah.
That was absurd. Invicta, and also, by the way, Brennan Ward retiring, an all-violence type of fighter. So congratulations to him on a great career. Invicta was back. They had their first show on CBS Sports Network. Talita Bernardo wins in the main event. She defends her 135-pound title against Olga Rubin. Some nice highlights there. And like I said last week, good to have them in the mix. Karate Combat had an absolute insane card. Our good friend Ben the Bane wins. Shout out to him. President Awesome, our other good friend who is in studio, is choking out dudes in the middle. We have this footage, right? He's choking out a guy, a cornerman who just like runs into the pit.
He gets this thing in deep, man. I mean, this is a whole series here.
What in the world?
You can see him in the suit. He's in there in the suit. Nice and presidential of him.
Yes. And he's just like,
I
yeah,
mean,
let me
here we
check
go.
you out real quick.
He's about to lock this thing in heavy. I mean, full under the chin.
Yo,
Gets the
look at
hands
this.
locked.
Standing RNC. Sam Alvey in the
I mean,
mix.
that's great shit. That's great shit, man.
Madness.
If the president is fighting you, you're in a good fight promotion.
I suppose, yeah.
I mean, he'll throw hands.
There was also a very scary knockout. James Vick got knocked out. Awful knockout. And he's taken some knocks as well. And I was told that he was sent to the hospital. There were seizures, self-induced coma. Last I heard, I mean, that is scary stuff, man. That is scary stuff.
Really scary.
Last I heard, looked like he was doing better. But looking for an official update there. Extremely scary stuff. In addition to all of that, we had the NHL draft at the Sphere. So the first live televised event at the Sphere. Dana White saying on Saturday that by the time they have their show there on September 14th, that's going to look like kids writing with crayons, like real elementary stuff. And I thought it was pretty damn impressive. Even Celine Dion showed
like, come
up.
on, is it really going to look like kids with crayons? Like,
no,
no
the whole thing is
way.
just he said, like, the way he's talking about it is just, it's going to be, he said it's going to be the greatest event in the history of sports.
Yeah. One off. Going to spend
$17 million. He's already spent $17 million.
I believe it's going to be amazing. I believe it's going to be amazing. I have no doubt about that. But like, just to downplay anything else that's happened at the Sphere, like almost anything that's happening there right now looks incredible.
Absolutely. And for the NFL and NHL draft to look that incredible, takes a lot of work. My favorite moment of the weekend though was when Jalen Brunson showed up on SmackDown and faced off with Tyrese Halliburton. Did you guys see this?
Well, I saw it on social.
Oh,
I loved it.
Can we relive it?
Yeah, I mean, we could play it.
I would love to play it. No, not this one. We're going to talk about that later. Jalen Brunson, he's a basketball player. He plays for the Knicks.
The Knicks one.
Yeah. He was there at MSG. And look at Tyrese. Tyrese looked like a bomb out there, if you ask me. Am I allowed to say that? Looked like a doofus. Yes or no?
No, I just think you're hating.
I think you're a little biased.
Who, me? He's got like baggy jorts on.
bias.
He's got baggy jorts on with black boots and white
East runs
socks.
through Philly now anyway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
John Cena wears jorts, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Legend.
Yeah, 2004.
For what it's worth, Joe just ice grilled me when I said that.
Yeah.
Both of you. I got you both riled up.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate it very much. Hey, if you like this video, give us the old thumbs up. Subscribe as well. You could get many more of these videos on the channel, so please do that. We would love you forever if you did so.